What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Right Point of View YouTube channel with your host, Ashley. And today we're going to be reacting to Byron Donalds. This guy is just chef's kiss, black conservative. I just absolutely love watching him do his thing. And actually, in this reaction video, we're going to watch him go head to head with Charlemagne the God, DJ Envy, and another young woman. I'm not sure of her name, but I will make sure to include it in the description. But they are basically talking politics, talking Trump, talking Kamala, talking policy, talking everything that we need to be talking about right now. And he has an amazing perspective, but I don't want to hold you. Let's get right into it. And the video starts now.
When you hear Donald Trump talk about some of the other brothers that were arrested and taking out that full ad in the paper, or you hear them talking about Haitian people eating dogs and cats, you still stand by them and what they believe, and if you do, why?
Well, a couple things.
Because you're given a second chance, like we should have, like you should have been. But you know, why do you still stand by them if you do?
Well, I think you also got to acknowledge that when he was president, he also did the First Step Act, which undid a lot of the issues with the '94 crime bill that a lot of politicians, including the current president, were for. He undid that when he was president of the United States. I think second chances are important in society. I think everybody's afforded them. You know, what happened with the Central Park Five, I was probably 6th, 7th grade, 8th grade when that was going down in New York.
Yeah,
I can't really speak to that. But what I also...
It was all over the paper.
I know. It was everywhere. You couldn't escape it.
We were around the same age, so we seen it everywhere.
You couldn't escape it. Mm-hmm. But what I would also add is that in 2000, Donald Trump was a member of the Reform Party. Most people don't talk about this. He was a member of the Reform Party. When David Duke joined the Reform Party, he left. He famously said, I can't be associated with that party because they let David Duke come in. That man is a Klansman. When he bought Mar-a-Lago, he desegregated Mar-a-Lago. But at the time when he bought it, only white people were allowed in Mar-a-Lago. He desegregated that, allowed black people and Jewish people to be a part of Mar-a-Lago. So I think that when you start going down the road of the past, you have to take a man in his totality. I know the man today.
And I would ask DJ Envy, after years and years of voting Democrat and seeing the same problems in the black community, obviously not much has changed. You guys keep voting the same way and expecting different results, not seeing them, but then continue to drive the point like you just can't get on the side of Republicans. Democrats have done absolutely zero for you. Why don't you ever question that? I love that Byron is on this platform because black people really need to wake up. Like they really, really need to wake up to the hypocrisy. And they are. I'm so glad they are. But conversations like this with Byron, who is educated, who is conservative, and who knows facts, this needs to be happening.
And when you couple that with the economic policies, the energy policies, the foreign policy, we have to acknowledge the reality that in the world today, the United States is in the midst of two conflicts, not directly, but indirectly. We just sent troops over into the Middle East because of the growing conflict with our ally Israel, having to essentially secure its sovereignty and its protection from Hezbollah and Hamas. Well, when Donald Trump was president, we didn't have to do any of that. So I acknowledge the stuff that you're talking about that happened in the past, but I think you have to take a man on the full record. And when he was president, he did release a lot of black people from prison. He did.
100%. Some of our most famous and our most greats, Kodak Black, Lil Wayne, the GOAT, got a pardon under his presidency. And I mean, there's so much more. He helped Jennifer Hudson when her family was killed in an unexpected, crazy situation. He put her up in the Trump Towers. There was a girl who said without Trump, I forget her name, but a black girl said without Trump, she wouldn't have been able to finish her school program. During his term, he actually funded the schools and gave them lines of credit to make sure they can continue to educate. These things need to be talked about. These people always have to dig so far into the archives to make a point. What about Biden? What about Biden coming on this very same podcast and saying, Charlemagne, if you don't vote Biden, you ain't black. And he sat there dumbfounded and said nothing. But these guys are so quick to try to put Trump's record on the line and ask these weird ass questions, in my opinion.
That He did try to reform some of the criminal justice system. He did that as well. And so that work is just as important as something that he might have said back during the Central Park 5.
I acknowledge the First Step Act, but when you said he undid the 94 crime bill, what do you mean?
What I mean is that the reforms in the First Step Act undid in part some of the issues in the 94 crime bill. Not totally. Mm-hmm. Not totally. It dealt with the sentencing of those people who either had their sentences reduced or were released, and their convictions were in line with the 94 crime bill and the way criminal statutes were written under that piece of legislation.
Mm. And his thoughts on the whole
Hold on. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, what's up, Angela?
Sorry, just on this same point, you talked about taking the man in his totality.
Yeah.
So one of those things in his totality is what happened on January 6th, which was your first term in Congress.
Yeah.
Do you think he should be held accountable? Donald Trump should be held accountable for his role in the January 6th insurrection?
Well, I mean, listen, first of all, I would tell you that everybody's responsible for their own actions. Just like I'm not going to blame friends or blame anybody else for the things I've done wrong in my life. I'm not.
For telling people to march to the Capitol to have their voices heard peacefully and patriotically. Listen, y'all, in my opinion, that shit was a setup, okay? You have video of the guards there literally waving people, hey, come on this way.
When the House Republicans released all of the January 6th footage, and what has it proven? It's proven that we were right. It's proven that January 6th was a setup. It's proven that cops acted as tour guides, escorting peaceful protesters through the building, entrapping them, showing them around, taking photos with them, unleashing them from zip ties and handcuffs, fist bumping them, and then they all left peacefully from the building. It shows that the narrative of January 6th is completely and totally farcical, that is fraudulent, and that you have been lied to, ladies and gentlemen.
They still haven't released some of the reports and some of the officers that were on duty. They've inflated so many stories from January 6th to make it bigger than what it was and put the onus on Trump. He can't control what some of those people did. And quite frankly, even though some of them maybe behaved poorly, it wasn't dangerous. The only bad thing that really happened that day was on the hands of the police officer who shot Ashley Babbitt. Otherwise, you know what I mean? Nowhere near comparison. I hope somebody asked, were you guys okay when during those George Floyd riots, they were burning down their own cities? And destroying their own communities?
I'm not going to put that on him. I'm not going to run around and blame Bernie Sanders for the fact that Steve Scalise was shot. Because if you go back and look at when Steve Scalise, who's the current leader in the House of Representatives, who almost died at a congressional baseball practice. Hold on, let me explain this. I'm going to come back to January 6th.
Yeah, please do.
No, I will, of course. The shooter that almost killed Steve Scalise, the Republican leader, he said vehemently that the reason why he went to the congressional baseball practice of Republicans to shoot it up was because he felt that Republicans were going to take away health care. And what he had heard in his rhetoric was that was dangerous, and these Republicans had to be stopped. So I'm going to translate that to January 6th. The shooter is the one that perpetrated that crime. I'm not going to put that on Bernie Sanders, who he cited for the rhetoric around why he went to the congressional baseball practice. That's a shooter that almost killed Steve Scalise. Let me translate. Donald Trump authorized 10,000 National Guard troops. I'm on the oversight committee. He actually authorized 10,000 troops on January 4th, 2 days before January 6th, obviously. So if you're going to say that you incited an insurrection, how are you also going to authorize 10,000 National Guard troops to be at the Capitol? Are you inciting or are you not? Because the record is...
Exactly. And a lot of people don't ever talk about that. Nancy Pelosi declined for extra troops. Again, why I partially think it was all a part of the grand plan. I really, really do.
Listen, Nancy Pelosi was in charge of security. She turned down 10,000 soldiers. If she didn't turn down the soldiers, you wouldn't have had January 6th.
Because why? Why not? Listen, He had every right to question the election. It was wonky and janky, and there was all kinds of weird things going on. Hillary Clinton did it. So how come that's never talked about? For 4 years, she denied that Trump was actually the winner. She said it was Russians that helped him win. He's not a real president. That's what she said.
Best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
How can you win with Russian interference, though?
That's a real
what I'm
thing.
scared about in 2020.
But rightly.
Because I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win. So how do you fight against that in 2020?
You are absolutely right.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate?
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put in office because the Russians interfered.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president-elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do. We have a president who, if in fact it is proven, has been assisted by the Russians and may in fact not be a legitimate president.
The one thing that Trump is fearful of when it comes to his being president is that finally we will see how illegitimate his victory actually was.
I have an objection.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina. I object because people are horrified.
He's an illegitimate president.
Do you believe Trump is a legitimate president?
What I believe is that there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by the Russian interference.
So we have to look at, but you're going to see this girl throughout this entire video. She's unhinged and she gets very emotional, and you can tell just regurgitating talking points. Yeah, she has her little notes and her whatever, but so does Byron. So let's check this out.
He authorized the troops. Nancy Pelosi and Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., did not want the troops at the Capitol. Muriel Bowser signed a letter on January 5th wanting the National Guard troops to be on traffic duty in D.C. Now, here's a funny thing about January 5th, 2021, is that nobody was in D.C. because D.C.'s rules around COVID-19 had the entire city shut down. The streets were empty during this time. So the National Guard that was authorized by Donald Trump were on traffic duty when there was no traffic, when they could have been at the Capitol. That's the history of January 6th. So your question is, well, did he incite a riot? Well, I never seen somebody incite a riot.
What I said, I don't want to cut you off. I'm
gonna make one point. I don't want to cut
you off.
No,
but I want to make sure that you're addressing the right point, because I actually did not use that language. What I asked you was, should Donald Trump be held accountable for his role in January 6th? And so what I think,
this girl is like so ready to just fire that she's not listening. He's explaining, how can you put that responsibility on Donald Trump for his role? And I hope he's about to say that peacefully and patriotically, have your voices heard. What would his role be? The fact that he questioned the election, he has every right to do so.
I think is important is to compare this to Steve Scalise being shot after someone wanted health care versus the rhetoric, the very dangerous rhetoric that Donald Trump spouted on January 6th, where more than 1,200 people have been charged in nearly all 50 states for their role, and 140 police officers were assaulted. The same police officers that your party has said they want qualified immunity for, and Donald Trump, because we're looking at the totality of the person, has said they should have full immunity, right? And when you think about the number of police officers who would get full immunity for their role in killing and being violent with people in our community like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Freddie Gray, Philando Castile, Charlene Lyles, Manny Ellis. Is that really the kind of rhetoric that you want to push, especially at the Breakfast Club?
Well, hold on a second, Angela, because you brought in like 4 different topics now. You want to talk about
No, I didn't.
Yes, she did. And that's what she has to do to blow smoke. And I already feel myself getting irritated just listening to her. And I'm going to try to keep my composure. But this girl is unhinged, honestly.
What I brought in was January 6th responsibility, police accountability, and I used examples of why they should be held accountable. But you talked about how fantastic he was with the crime bill, which I object, but I'll let you finish your point.
Will you?
You also have not acknowledged the fact that this man was vehemently opposed to the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And you all are supposed to be the party that protects law enforcement, where over 150 police officers were assaulted that day on January 6th because of Donald Trump's rhetoric.
Okay, so let me respond to a couple things. Number one, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. There were actually two bills that were moving through the United States Senate that year. There was the George Floyd Policing Act that you discussed, and there was the bill that was written by Senator Tim Scott. They were both moving through the Senate, right? The Tim Scott bill is the one that could have got signed into law. It was essentially a mirror image of the George Floyd bill, except for qualified immunity. The difference between those two bills, and Angela, you just acknowledged it, the only difference between those two bills was qualified immunity. The issue with qualified immunity is very simple. If you remove qualified immunity from policing, you're going to have less officers on the street. Police officers make what? $70, $80, $90,000 a year. They have, most law enforcement has about 40 million or more encounters every single year with citizens. If you remove qualified immunity, I'm telling you this right now because I've talked with law enforcement officers all across the country, not the chiefs, the officers. They will not be working these communities. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I'm from Crown Heights, Brooklyn. I may not have always loved having the police in my neighborhood, and that's just a thing from a kid. I may not have always loved it, but when I needed them, they were there. And a lot of our officers today, they're Black, they're Hispanic, they're white. So removing qualified immunity only lowers the number of officers in communities. What we're seeing right now is a movement of policing from states where they're not really respecting law enforcement to states where they do, or there's not that moral support for law enforcement. I was in my district yesterday. I was talking with an officer who's from Philadelphia. He was a Philadelphia officer. He now is a Fort Myers officer. I asked him, I was like, well, why'd you make the move? He goes, because up there was no support for me as an officer for what I love to do, which is serve my community. So I said, enough is enough. I'm gonna move. He went to Florida.
And that is part of what she was doing. What everybody is doing is just like parroting this. Oh, they want to give them full immunity. Do you guys think that anywhere it would be okay to just disregard the law as a police officer, just disregard the law and just shoot somebody dead and you're just protected? That is not what qualified immunity is, not just full immunity. They keep saying that and dropping the qualified. Qualified immunity means it has to qualify in order for you to be immune, which empowers officers to do their jobs effectively, to get out into the streets, to actually confront criminals without having the worry of being persecuted or sued or anything like that. They have to be empowered to do their jobs. And if you take away qualified immunity, they're just not going to do shit. So who's that going to hurt when you have Black communities that have the highest crime in the first place? Who do you think that is going to hurt if you take away the cops' ability to do their job? Amen.
My sheriff in Florida, he's like, I have more applications coming from officers who are in states or in localities where they're not getting the moral support or whatever they need to continue to do their job day in, day out. And so they're leaving. Well, who does that hurt? That hurt. Who does that really hurt, though, Charlamagne? Yeah, because if you don't have officers if you don't have officers on the streets or officers, in urban areas, who's really left in that lurch?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what does qualified immunity have to do with having less police officers?
Because the economic incentive of qualified immunity means that your personal assets aren't gone after if something goes wrong. So, you're in business. Do you get involved in a project or a deal that leaves you massively exposed financially? You may, depending on your passion for that project, but then you also sit back and think, now, wait a minute, if something goes wrong, I'm going to be held massively liable. Maybe I need to do something.
If something goes wrong, we're talking about people getting violently hurt or killed.
Yeah, clearly.
That is something going wrong.
But it's clear when somebody clearly violates a constitutional right.
And when you violate a constitutional right, qualified immunity doesn't apply to you. And that's
Thank you. Like, these people are like, I think, missing a couple screws. Qualified immunity.
I'm talking about. It does not, Angela, don't do that. It does not.
Yes, Angela.
I thought that was the definition.
No, it does not.
That was the definition.
No, it does not. If you carry yourself outside of the confines of your training and the protocols of that department, qualified immunity doesn't apply to you.
That's not true.
That is very true. That is very true.
Is patently false.
It's patently true, and we need to make sure we have that accurate. We cannot make that statement because you have a lot of officers out here who do their job with honor and dignity and respect for the people that they serve.
It says, okay, it was a qualified immunity is a legal doctrine that protects government officials from civil lawsuits when they perform their jobs unless they clearly violate a constitutional right.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And what is a violation of a right is where...
What, Charlamagne? Thank you. I'm so glad. Look at him. Looking at Angela. She is just your typical emotional liberal. Honestly, this is what they do. They just try to throw these words at you and hope it sticks and you get all emotional and what? Full immunity for police officers? Never! Like, get the out of here. Oh, she's gonna bug me.
Outside the norms of their training and the protocols of that department or that agency.
But here's the main thing. Because we can actually go past qualified immunity because this is the place where you've refused to answer both on Donald Trump's accountability and on the law enforcement that you love so dearly.
Right.
What we know is that he's seeking full immunity, like the same immunity he now has because of the Supreme Court. Because of the corruption of the Supreme Court, we have now gone beyond civil presidential immunity to criminal presidential immunity. He would like to give that same immunity to law enforcement. True or false?
Well, let's expand that a couple things.
True or false?
You can't answer true or false, Angela, because you got to explain the details. No, see, this is the problem.
I don't want you to explain the details.
What do you mean you don't want him to explain the details? It's not about you. It's about informing Americans with this conversation, and the details matter. You can't just back him into a corner and say, yes or no, true or false. Like, girl, pipe down. Let the man speak. This is what she's like shooting from every angle just to, you know what I mean? Like, this is what they do, and it's so irritating to me.
Why you don't want people to hear the details, Angela? The details are what the things that matter. You gotta explain the details, or then you just talking.
And then
it's not a fucking true or false question, Angela.
Then you're just talking.
Yeah, you don't want to say that because you know that it's not true. So
that is not true. You want a true or false statement.
Congressman, I want to know.
I don't want to argue with you. I want to explain the facts. Angela.
She's moving over to a new question. She won't even let him finish. I'm telling you, these people are so dishonest, so unhinged, so manipulative, and they should honestly be really criminally charged for this misinformation and disinformation because it is criminal what they are doing to the minds of everyday Americans who just don't understand this stuff.
I don't want to argue with you.
I would like to know if you've ever experienced racism in this country, Congressman.
Yeah, actually I have.
Okay. Do you believe America is a racist country?
No, I don't.
Okay, I believe that that's true because you said that in an op-ed on Fox News. As a Black conservative, I, like Senator Scott, agree in our two lives and the lives of many Black men and women like us are living proof that America is indeed no longer a racist nation and by far the best place to reach your fullest potential. And so here's my question. You did, however, vote to support the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act along with every member of the House except for 3 Republicans. So I appreciate your bipartisanship there. And what I do know as well, because America is in fact a racist country, was founded on such principles. Black men were lynched by the carceral state last week. I'm sure you've heard of Marcellus Williams by now in Missouri, who was convicted by a nearly all-white jury, and Freddie Owens in South Carolina, who was executed despite his friend recanting testimony that Owens was not in fact there. This is the same state, by the way, that allowed for a firing squad as an execution option. Black people are about 7.5 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of murder in the United States than are white folks, and about 80% more likely to be innocent than others convicted of murder, according to a 2022 report by the National Registry of Exonerations. So please tell me how America is not a racist country.
Because where else, somebody, please drop it in the comments, where else could a Black person be more successful than America? Where they could be a president, where they could be a congressman, a governor, a mayor. Basically, Charlamagne and DJ Envy are on one of the biggest hip hop platforms in history to date. If it's so racist, how are you afforded the ability to be whatever you want to be? Like, we need to have real conversations here, people. This is getting out of hand. And honestly, Black people, dear Black people, honestly, this is what they do to you. This is how they pull at your heartstrings and make you feel like you are less than. Like, because of this racist system, you are unable to be something in America. And that is just not true. Are there racist people in America? Sure, of course. Was it founded on racist principles at a time? Yes, I agree. But we are a far way from there. Far away from there. And American ancestors would be rolling in their graves to see you guys bitching and complaining about the times of now when you have never had more freedom, ever. The freedom that your ancestors were lynched and beat and slaved for. Yeah, those freedoms. You have those today. She gets to sit on a platform and have a voice. Unbelievable.
First thing I would say is that our past is a dark one. It really is. We can't walk away from that. We had whole laws that were subjugating Black people in the South of this nation for decades after the Civil War. We can't walk away from that one. I believe that in America, we have great people in this country, and we have some people, quite frankly, that even I can't stand. But they're the vast, vast, vast minority of people in our country. Most people just want to live in harmony and peace. That's what they really want. I think the important thing to acknowledge today is what's going to help Black people going forward. And what's going to help Black people moving forward is economic policy. It's actually wide open energy policy so we can be energy dominant. It's, yes, securing our southern border, because we have a situation right now where, yeah, there are more than 15 million illegal aliens in the country. Where do they reside? Mostly in sanctuary cities like New York. Where are they at? Sanctuary states like Illinois, like California. What's happening in those cities? Hospital systems are overrun. Why are they overrun? Because you have people in the country illegally who don't have resources, so they're going into the emergency room. What are they taking up? They're taking resources from poor people in our country, whether they're Black, whether they're Hispanic, whether they're white. That's wrong. What about education? We have a situation where in too many inner cities, kids are not reading at grade level, or they don't have math skills at grade level. How does that help them excel and achieve? I don't want to discount what Angela is saying. I don't. I acknowledge the issue of our nation, but we always are trying to strive to be the more perfect union. So in 2024, what are the economic policies? What are the national security policies? What are the border security policies that are gonna make our country thrive? So whether you Black, Hispanic, or white, you could thrive. Right. And so I think it's important.
Would you have to say that if it wasn't a racist country, whether you're Black,
can you
white,
let
or
the
Hispanic,
man
you
speak?
could thrive?
No.
Are we thriving? Are members in your
Black people aren't thriving in America? Go to Atlanta. I went to Atlanta, and honestly, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Almost every beautiful big property out there is owned by Black. Every business, you walk into a store, workers, waitresses, restaurant owners, Black owned. It's so Black and dominated in Black that it's beautiful. And there are so many places like that in America. Of course, are there still people that are hurting? Yes. Is America perfect? No. But to sit here and act like you can't be your best self because you're Black in America in 2024 is pure hypocrisy. And they need to stop doing this because it's poisoning the minds of the Black people. Why should they go out into the world and feel inferior to white, Mexican, Jew, whoever? It's not the case.
I would argue we're not really thriving right now. It's inflation, which, by the way, was brought to us by Kamala Harris. It has really slowed down people from being able to excel.
By Kamala?
Yes.
Vice President.
Watch this guy. First time he chimes in.
Charlamagne, listen, man. When Joe Biden wanted to do his American Rescue Plan, Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote in the United States Senate. She broke the tide and started this inflation that has hurt so many people in our country. Everybody listening to your show. It's not true?
First of all, it's a tie-breaking vote.
You sure you want to go there?
Go outside.
Yes, let's go, Byron.
Okay, let's go there.
You got notes. You got notes, Angela, right?
That's fine. I have notes.
I'm gonna give it to Charlamagne.
No,
I'm gonna give it to Charlamagne.
she has talking points, not notes. She Googled a couple of things. Somebody passed her a couple of sound bites, and she's off to the races. These people are not rooted in trying to actually make change. They just want to make emotions and anger and division and woe is me, poor me. No, if you go out and you try and you work hard, black, white, Chinese, Asian, Indian, it doesn't matter. If you apply yourself, you have the opportunity to make something of yourself. And to say anything otherwise is just wrong.
That on every question I've asked,
because Angela,
for every infrastructure project in your community, you should go out and thank Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Congress that voted for the American Rescue Plan. Angela, that's what should be happening.
Larry Summers wrote an op-ed back in 2021. Larry Summers was the Treasury Secretary for Bill Clinton. He was an economic advisor to Barack Obama. He said that the American Rescue Plan that Joe Biden wanted, that Kamala Harris was a tie-breaking vote in the United States Senate, would create a massive inflation that we have not seen in a generation. Well, guess what? Larry Summers was correct. You know who also was correct, Angela? I was, because I was in the budget committee when they brought the bill. And I said in that committee, it's going to cause massive inflation. That's what happened. So the problem we have in our economy today is that prices have gone up massively. Wages adjusted for inflation is down.
No word from Charlemagne. He's just reading, not a peep. Go ahead, read the paragraph, Charlemagne.
People's pocketbooks are hurting, but we have a presidential election in 40 days. So, and I'm gonna ask Envy this question. Envy, you're in the housing business as well. I know because I listen to the show. No, I'm just asking him a question. Chill, Angela.
I'm just wondering how Envy's getting interviewed. It's a conversation. He's talking to 3 people. What are you talking about? This girl is like, ooh.
So I listen to the show. I know you do a lot of business in housing. Would you hire somebody that broke up stuff in one of your houses to fix the other houses?
No.
Exactly. She broke the economy.
I'm not going to do this morning, Byron.
Why are you not going to do this, Angela? Because I'm bringing facts. Hold on now. So now I'm bringing facts and you don't want to do it no more? Come on now, Angela. That's not right.
Go ahead, Charlemagne. Share what you're reading.
Fact-based conversation. I want to have a fact-based conversation.
You wanted to bring up votes. And so let's talk about votes.
Go ahead.
You have a 96% voting.
I just need to point out that every single time he has her, she just moves on without clarifying, without anything. She's just on to the next question. She's all over the place. And I saw a lot of people online saying that he wouldn't give her a moment to talk. I think he's been very respectful. She's been talking over him. She's been interrupting him. She wouldn't let him finish a sentence. She won't let him get his details and his points off. Like when someone has to go to those lengths to minimize what you're saying, it's because they don't want you to hear something. Why not just fire back with facts? Why move on and try to bury the details? It's so wrong. Anyways, y'all, if you all want to watch the rest of this, y'all go check it out. Full clip will be in the description. I can't do any more. Byron did a phenomenal job trying to keep their biases at bay. But man, these people are just one-track mind. They've been like that forever. It saddens me that people like Charlemagne, a black man who is successful in America, paints this narrative over and over and over. Because for whatever reason, people do listen to him sometimes in terms of politics. I don't know why, but they do. And he shows time and time again he don't know shit. That's why he brings on these people to talk on their behalf, because he doesn't know enough. And I would urge you, Charlemagne, to go read some books, step outside of your regular circle, and actually listen with an open mind. Honestly, I just find that when they're listening, it's just to respond. They already have the answers queued. Unless, as I mentioned before, I believe these guys are paid. You have a lot of big black celebrity figures who black communities really look to get the news heard and thoughts heard and ideas heard. who look up to these people like LeBron James. I don't know why. Charlemagne, all these types of people. And they abuse their platforms, in my opinion. Sell us out. You've seen how many black people have come out, celebrities. Oh, vote Kamala. How could you deny a black woman? Blah, blah. Like, get the... Because they're tired of being lied to and used. Black people are waking up. And every black person I know watching this, you're the smart one. I know you're the smart one. Listen to it with an open mind. If by the end of it, you still want to vote the other way, by all means. But as Trump said once upon a time at his rally just a little while ago, what do you have to lose, people? Democrats have been running the country way more than Republicans. And what's changed for you? Come on, man. Be real with yourself. Black people, like people like Charlemagne, be real with the community, man. That, whatever her name is, I don't even remember anymore. Stop this, Angela. Stop this, man. Just stop it. It's terrible what they're doing, honestly. Anyways, y'all, I'm sorry. I got a little heated myself. It just makes me really emotional because it's just happening by our own to our own. You know what I mean? And it's honestly time for change. It really is time for change. And God bless Byron. He doing his thing, man. A respectable, clean-cut man who did his thing in America. And he's here showing everybody else how they can do it too. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. Sorry for getting emotional. And catch you on the next one.